Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
And a good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout, live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports, live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, tune in, iHeartRadio, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Going to be a fun show today. Shawn Belle on his way. He will be here. He never gave me a time, usually gives me a time, and then he's earlier. He just says he's on his way. So Shawn Belle will be here at some point. We got Dash from the Heavy Hockey Network and Oilers Live, which you can catch later tonight, 9 o'clock. Right here on EST as Friends of EST. And then we've got local football coach, now author, Ron McIntyre, Gridiron Wisdom, a playbook for leadership. How long's the book been out now?
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks, just out. He's with us to talk some football and his book. And thanks for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Funny enough, I know Ron's son.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it's Michael and I, we go back a bit.
And our grandmothers are best friends.
Which you found out.
As I walked into the studio.
Yeah, which is wild. It's a small world.
Two
world.
Wynyard boys.
Yep. Wynyard, Saskatchewan, representing right here, Maddie.
I'd say I've never heard of Wynyard before.
Golden Bear football.
Golden Bears.
Biggest
Love the
town on
Golden
the
Bears.
Yellowhead.
Yes,
Biggest
that's
town
true.
what?
On the Yellowhead.
Yeah.
Really?
About halfway between Yorkton and Saskatoon. Just past Kandahar. How's that for confusing?
I've just learned so much today. I am now the show's over. I think
Golden
I've
Bears
learned
just
enough.
got a new set of lights for their field actually, so they can
really?
play right through the night now. And
Oh, you stay in tune with the
good.
the old,
Of course,
with
yeah.
home.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Ryan Peterson, was all over the funding for it, and he's a teacher there now. And yeah, I was part of that 9-man crew. In fact, my knee still hates me for it.
See, I never knew you actually played. Mm-hmm. Look at you go. Mm-hmm. Running back, halfback, you said.
Halfback on, yeah, we played 2 ways in 9-man football. It was a grind.
And what position for you?
I was a linebacker, a slow one. And so that was the limit of my athletic ability. Not fast enough to be a running back or a DB, and
Yeah, but good enough to go play in university.
Yeah, it couldn't have been that slow.
Yeah, it's you made, at least if you were slow, you made it up for it in some other ways. You know, I don't think you just go to university.
Discipline.
Ron, what made you want to write a book? This book, actually, let's go with just a quick. What is the book about?
so during COVID, and I was retired, sitting in my bedroom, and there was a lot of negativity out there. Our society and our community was scrambling, and I thought, to save my soul, I got to get something positive. And I'd coached for 35 years and played since I was 13. So what I did is I thought, I wonder how all who are the great programs in Alberta's football history, pro and amateur, and wouldn't it be interesting to do here's a cliche, deep dive on what made them click? Because I had coached and I'd won some games and lost some games and had some success. Other seasons didn't have much success. But anyway, so then I started the interview process, and I went through about 60, 70 guys, ex-pro coaches, players, cross-checking what people were saying, and I just had a riot. In fact, the interviewing part was the most fun. That's where I think what you do here at Edmonton Sports Talk is kind of neat, because you get to talk about something every day that, all these guys that you're talking about are aiming to be perfect.
Yeah.
And these guys, they almost were. And that was kind of interesting. Not kind of. That was really interesting. And the 5 programs that emerged were Raymond in the South, 300 kids, tons of city or provincial championships in basketball and football.
St. Francis.
And then St. Francis in Calgary, same kind of deal under Gary DeMann. Brian Dudley was the fellow I interviewed from Raymond, and he's probably, I hope I'm right, Brian, but I think you're pushing 90, and as is Gary. And the 80s Dinos under Peter Cannellan, incredible. And I coached against Peter, so I know all about them. And we lost more than we beat them. That was a humbling kind of interview, a series of interviews with him. And then up here in Edmonton, it was the 60s Huskies that won their 3 in a row, and the 50s Eskimos that won 3 in a row.
Okay.
Now, the 50s Eskimos I knew a lot about because my wife's father played for them. So I had spent hours going to the farm listening to his stories, and then all the people in town knew about the offense and defenses they ran and the contributions of their athletes after they finished playing in the community were extraordinary. Guys like Getty and Kwong and Bill Smith and on and on.
It's one of the things that makes the Canadian Football League great, actually. Even still to this day, there are so many players that stick around and just join the communities that they're a part of.
Yeah.
And it's, we get all these Americans even that come up, but they become Canadians and they join what we do. That's one of the best parts, I think, of the Canadian Football League.
I had a cousin that went to St. Francis. I think they win 25 of the last 50 city titles or something like that. Like it's pretty incredible what they've pulled off in their relatively short time. I mean, when they came around, 70s or something like that? 60s, 70s.
And it's, and Gary DeMann, he started winning in the late 60s. And his first championship was over Peter Cannellan. And Peter Cannellan had a good run in high school too. But the thing that intrigued me about St. Francis was how they did it. And then how they carried that forward to the present. I went down to a St. Francis. I knew how Gary ran things, and we can get into the stories later if you like. But how he ran things, for example, their helmets go on when they leave the school, and they don't come off till they get back. There's no celebrating a win. At the end of the game, you run around the post nearest to you. The whole team runs, and then they shake hands and get onto the bus. They're not allowed to talk to their girlfriends, their parents. They're not looking in the stands. Let's get on the bus. When you get on the bus, you don't celebrate. You don't start singing your songs till you're out of earshot of your opponents. He demanded respect for officials, his opponents, and the school. If you didn't go to class, you weren't playing. If you missed a class, you missed a half. And so I was curious, because you always got to check this stuff out. Is this really what they did? And then after interviewing a few of their guys from all different decades, that's how they're doing it again.
Okay.
They're still doing it. And when you watch their practices, it'd be that like your son is 4.
Yeah. Just turned 5, yeah.
You would want him to go through that kind of program because it's teaching them the stuff that's going to help them in life. And
what do you think the biggest difference is between kids that were raised in my generation, and I'm in my 40s, to how you promote discipline and without putting on too much pressure in today's age?
Well, you know how when there's interviews on TV, everybody says that's a good question. That's a great question. And I've got some strong feelings on it. When you go back, and I go back, I was a history major, so I like to go back to history because it doesn't really repeat itself. But like Mark Twain says, history rhymes, and you see things over and over again.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
I like that.
And Socrates said 25 years ago that the youth today were insolent, they were disrespectful, they were this and that. I heard that every year as a teacher about the grade 10s. So really what should have happened in the last 100 years, if that was true, we would have nothing but Charles Mansons running around.
Yeah.
Kids haven't changed. They haven't changed from you, your son. They have the same needs, the same desires, but maybe what's changed is our approach to them.
Like the communication.
I would say that adults need to look at, and one of the reasons I wrote the book, look at the exemplars and how they treated their kids with absolute dignity and respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, having a high standard.
Interesting.
Shawn,
Hi,
Ron.
Shawn, Belle. How are you?
Belsey, how you doing, buddy?
Welcome, Shawn.
Hi, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Fantastic.
I just asked Ron about the difference of what it was like to coach back in my generation versus what it's like to communicate with the youth of today, and how you
just turned off the truck as I heard that. So
Okay, yeah.
The answer.
Yeah.
As I just said that kids haven't changed. Human nature has remained a constant, but how we've treated them has changed. And so in this book, what you would find in the exemplar programs, and there are still exemplar programs, they still hold the players to a high standard, but they also protect the integrity of the kid or the athlete. That hasn't changed, and it won't change. If you build relationships with kids, you can take them to a high level as long as they're held to that high level. And you have the courage as an adult to say, you're not going to act like that.
You're smiling.
Would you agree?
Because
Yeah.
this is like what I try to teach my kids in my program, I find it interesting because, we sometimes I feel like we get lost in the wins and losses of things, especially at the minor hockey level. And, I made comments on Hello Hockey where it's like, okay, well, you got certain coaches that are out there that are like,
I think your mic's not working for a second. Oh, give me a second. I gotta fix that. You might want to just speak into that one quickly.
That's all good. Don't worry about that.
Test 1 2 3 4. Test 1 2. Oh yeah, you're gonna have to switch there while I fix this mic.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
good?
This issue with Tommy at one point.
Yeah, so I always feel like, the coaches sit back and they're like, okay, well, we win hockey games. But what have you done to help the players that are on your team? Because in my opinion, if we're looking at just hockey, and this is what I coach, so I'll just speak to that. Mm-hmm. If you say my top 6 forwards are the only ones that improve because you played them the most, are they actually improving their game? Or you just riding your pony, so to speak, so that you can get the result that you want as a coach? So you really haven't done anything. Mm-hmm. And then on the end of the bench, you've got guys that are playing 4 minutes, and there is coaches around that will play a kid 3 minutes and then be like, well, what did I do? We won. So what are you upset about? Well, in reality is that, like, I think you just hit the nail on the head, is you got to create a relationship with your kids. 2, you've got to create a standard. And the wins, to me, are a byproduct of the standard that you put into your program. So if you're saying that we need to go out and I'll use my team, energy, effort, enthusiasm. So I'll go out and I'll say energy, effort, enthusiasm. And if you don't hold to that standard and what we go through all the other details with that, well, then I'm barking at you. Mm-hmm. But why are you mad, coach?
Because you're only doing 2 of the 3.
Because you're only giving me 2 of the 3. Mm-hmm. And the standard is what we hold dear to everything. So we could beat a team 11-0, but every single time we're cheating the puck, we're not doing the details, we have 0 habits, I'm barking at my kids. Because at the end of the day, if you create that standard, well, then now your kids are flourishing because the 12th forward is trying to become better than the 11th forward, and he's trying to become better than the 10th forward, and everybody's now progressing, and everybody's actually getting better and developing.
Yeah.
So I was laughing because I'm like, man, this is refreshing to hear, because you just hear so often, well, we win. Yeah. We're a winning program. Okay, well, how many guys are up to the next level?
Yeah.
2. Okay, well, there's 20 on the team, so good job.
Well, I think the book probably tells a story about doing this over time and how a tradition can build to the legacy, right? And then that coach that Belle's talking about is maybe going to win for 2 or 3 years, but is he going to win for 20 years? Is that program going to win for 20 years because of the culture and what was set forth?
Well, especially if you don't create a relationship with your kids. Yeah. Because you certainly aren't creating a relationship with a kid that's playing a minute and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
You're not doing that. And then the parents are pissed, and then the kid's pissed, and you sit back and as a coach being like, well, it's my way or the highway. Well, that's not what minor hockey is. That's not what minor sports are. Right. We're trying to develop these kids so that they can have success down the road, whether that's in the sport that they're actually in or with life.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to teach these kids. And so for me, I just feel like we get lost in the wins and losses and wins and losses. Well, sure, yeah, they're awesome. But there's so many life lessons that you can teach within having a standard, creating relationships.
Yeah.
End of story.
The fellows that I interviewed, there was the Dennis Cadats from the 60s Huskies. He passed. And so I got to talk to a lot of his players. They were always, again, these are buzzwords, but process oriented. So that's what Shawn was talking about. If you're focused on scoreboards, if you're constantly staring at scoreboards, there are going to be guys whipping by you. So they would look at, are we serving our mandate, which is the growth of that player? All these teams, it was super important that trainers were respected, third string players, they all were part of it, and they could all tear it down if they weren't respected. It's super important to go in there as a fist. We're all in this together. They didn't like to talk about these fellows were really interesting because they wouldn't talk about themselves as they played to win. They were competitive. They had processes in line that allowed them to do that. They would talk about Peter Cannellan was really interesting because he was probably one of the best youth sport coaches in football. He would probably be second behind a fellow at Laval whose name escapes me. But it took me about 6 hours before I could crack the nut on Peter and just say, what is at the root of what you did? And he said, listen, Ron, okay, enough. I respected the integrity of the players in my program. And once you met him and Gary Demand at St. Francis, what was the essence of your success, Gary? And he said, my faith. And it was the integrity of his players. And you weren't important. We're all important here. You weren't important because you were a star. He treated his stars as he did everybody else. Peter Cannellan had probably, arguably, one of the best running backs in Calgary high school football, Jeremiah, from St. Francis. In the first year, Peter said, you're gonna serve, you're gonna be on the team, but you're not gonna play. We're just gonna get you used to the Dino way. In their Western final in Edmonton in '83, Jeremiah had a popsicle stick with the other first-year guys and was cleaning the cleats of the starters that were coming off the field. And they did it willingly. Tony Spallettini, who was a star, and he's a big deal in Calgary amateur sports. When he tells a story, he gets teary-eyed. We were in it together, all of us.
The passion meant that much to him.
Absolutely. And the love they had for each other as teammates and their coaches. Yeah.
It's funny, I hear all this, and I just think now, this day and age, and I just think of Chris Morris.
Yeah.
And what he was trying to build with U of A and the Golden Bears, and it wasn't about the wins as much. It was about, like, when he spoke about it at his press conference, being the president of the Elks now, he spoke about the 97% graduation rate that he had.
I thought about him a lot reading.
And that's what he was focused on, and it's not about the wins, losses there. And now, like, he's professional, though, and I asked him, like, what's the rate of success for the Elks now, and it was win. Like, for there, it's win, but for university, it was about getting these guys ready for the rest of their life, because most of them aren't going to play football, but making them solid guys, solid men, well-educated, all of that. That's what Chris Morris cared about, and that's what he built at the Golden Bears. And that's what I'm hearing that. It's just like, that was what the Golden Bears had, and it was academics mattered. I want to say equally as athletics, but I think more than athletics to Chris Morris.
So what's interesting, I feel like I'm hogging the mic here.
No.
But you're setting up the next thing. And the next thing was when Cannellan went to the University of Calgary as a head coach in '83, there were a lot of Edmonton guys down there playing in the late 70s with Coach Lashik. Him and Dennis Kadatz, who were both U of A grads, said, we take taxpayer dollars, we serve the needs of our community. So if we have a young Shawn Belle, we want him here. We want him here. We don't want him going anywhere else. And we're not going to recruit guys from other provinces. We want our guys to go through the program, stay in the program, and this really sounds corny, but be good citizens and grow minor football in our community and be good dads. So he wouldn't recruit north of Red Deer. Guys would come to the University of Calgary. Fast forward 20 years, Morris, and he doesn't quite know how it happened, is getting the star athletes out of Calgary high school football, and it's driving the alumni down there crazy to the point where a coach lost his job who was an alumni. We're getting the guys from Wisewood, from Ernest Manning, and they're coming up here. So Chris must have set a base kind of foundation that attracted those boys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there was also, I think, for him with the Bears, he wanted to make sure he wasn't losing Edmonton guys because, as you're saying that, Edmonton guys were still going to Calgary, and Dimitri Tsoumpis is one of those big names. It was dinos. They're always dinos. And I think for Chris Morris, it was, why are they dinos? Why aren't they Bears? And he kept them in Edmonton, kept them as the Golden Bears, and then started building a winning program. And it was, well, I want to go play for Chris Morris. I want to go play for that team up there. And he truly built something at the Golden Bears, which is, it's sad that he's no longer going to keep it going. Excited that, though, he's taken over the Double E to see what he can do there. And we'll see what the Golden Bears can do with getting their next coach. And if he could carry on that tradition, at least, of Chris Morris, because everything that, like, we're talking about here, and that, having doing things the right way, that was the Golden Bears.
You'd have to think that's a priority in their search to carry on that tradition or that culture.
I would think so. And it
so.
seems like Mark Killam would hopefully maybe be the guy,
Right,
unless he gets a job in the Canadian Football League somewhere.
I'm glad you mentioned Mark.
Oh,
I was going to give you the scoop on that.
Matty's the king of segues.
Yes, you are.
Almost like he knows what he's doing around here.
So I coached Mark with the Bears,
Oh, yeah?
and he was just a tremendous teammate. He was a good player, but a great teammate. And I interviewed him. I'm going to write a second book about 4 months ago. Well, he's been released for the Stamps. And again, the Calgary football community is not real happy about that because Mark he's just one of those guys.
18 years he was there.
Yeah.
He was with the Stamps for a long time.
So his old coach got on the phone. A couple other old coaches got on the horn after the release and said, "Come north, young man." Remains to be seen what he does because he'll get CFL offers. But he's the kind of guy, again, you'd want coaching your son. 100%.
Right.
And maybe the guy that would carry on the Chris Morris way at the U of A. Alum, like the alum of the program. He actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was the runner-up to Chris Morris for that job back in the day.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so.
Okay.
So, like, it would be it almost is like a perfect coincidence for the football program. If Chris Morris goes to the Elks, and then all of a sudden, Mark Killam's now going to be your head coach. Like, I think too many people actually thought that was all planned. And it's like, it wasn't. The Stamps moved on from Mark Killam. It wasn't Killam leaving because he knew.
I always
Chris
wondered
Morris
that. Okay.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't planned or anything like that. So it just happened to happen when Chris Morris was leaving to go to the Elks that the Stamps did that, and it just played out. So it's an interesting time for football here in this city. So you went writing a book about the greatest stories in football in Alberta, but it seems like it evolved from that. It became more than just about the stories. Leadership and like that. There was those themes that really
Football
came out
being
of
like a
this book.
microcosm of life, if you will.
Yeah, and I didn't start thinking about that. But what happened since the book was released 3 weeks ago, I would get guys writing me or texting me and saying, that's how we run our business, or that's how we should be running our business. And then my biggest critics are my best buddies.
Always.
Yeah, they're hard.
That's why they're your best buddies.
Harsh, man. It's like a locker room. It's like, come on, give me a break. I'm not a writer. I just
listen to these guys when the mics are off, honestly.
And so I got it. And one of the fellows, a guy I've known since, we're going back to 82, Ian Gallagher, whose son plays in the NHL. I've done some work with his academy out in Delta.
Yeah.
And Shawn knows who he is. And he was really hard on me until he got to the last 50 pages, and he started looking at what Canellan did. So it looks like I'll either be flying out to Vancouver in a week to talk with his coaches, which I did until COVID. I would go out monthly, and the players. And it's kind of funny to hear Shawn talk because as a football guy, I have no illusions about what I know about hockey. It's nothing. I just want the others to win. is just please beat Calgary and let's win a cup. But I don't understand. I've watched it my whole game, and I don't really understand the game. It's so fast and furious, and you have your first line and your fourth line and your third pairing of defense, and then you hear the things out of the locker room and how the great teams in hockey, like Brendan was telling me how when they did their Stanley Cup run during COVID, that when they went to lunch, Pronger, not Pronger, sorry, Weber, Gallagher, Price, their leadership team, they wouldn't sit together. You just didn't even think about it. You go sit with the closest guy to you. And kind of strangely, Brendan said that's when he knew they had a team. There were no cliques. And they had a Stanley Cup run and lost to Tampa.
Yeah.
So there are similarities in sport or staff rooms or how to run businesses. And that's what kind of emerged out of that. I was just telling their stories. I have no illusions about, I'm not Malcolm Gladwell and I'm not Jordan Peterson and I'm not these guys. But this book has kind of opened some things. When the Forzani brothers who ran Sport Check, who sold it for close to $1 billion.
And owners of the Stamps.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah. Well, Tom said to me, he goes, and I was really curious, how does first generation Italian boys, immigrant parents, how do you build that kind of empire so fast? You know, they had no money when they started. And he said, Ron, we learned more about running a business from Gary DeMann at St. Francis than we did any university course we took it in university.
Just understanding what discipline and what dedication and passion can do no matter what you put your mind to, kind of type thing.
Yeah, and how to discipline employees without humiliating, and how to let an employee go but leaving them intact, and how to treat people and how to reward success and how to build a true team within a business. But that's happened a few times since the book was read, you know? And so that's the thing that I've always been curious about. The other game in Canada, the game in Canada, is that hockey locker room. And
yeah, I mean, I think there's, different teams have different ways of doing things. And I think for a long time, it's always been like the rookies eat last. But you would notice on certain teams, it would be like, okay, well, you know what, rooks, you guys can go up first. Because one of the things that I feel that has happened, I guess, the era before me, I consider myself part of the transition era, which transitioned from, craziness to what it is to
Mike
now.
Keenan to
like Mike
Chris
Keenan
Knobloch.
to exactly. Players are coming in and they're making impacts earlier than ever. Okay, well, why is that? Why do these guys make impacts now? And before it, I always felt that they were kind of rookie players would be held down for whatever odd reason that was, whether they weren't ready, whether it was just the mentality of the locker room. Rookies, you guys are eating last. Rookies, you're doing this. Rookies, you're doing that. But then as I started going, through the NHL and playing in Europe, and then playing in the AHL, and then now coaching, the teams to me that are the most successful are the ones that allow everybody to be themselves and ones that do things together. Simple, very, very simple thing is packing the bus. Yeah, I get it. There's a pathway for young kids to come into your teams and become part of it. But at the same time, if the captain picks up the pucks as well with those young guys, those young guys will now turn around and be like, wait a second, what was that all about? Now all of a sudden they feel like they're going to now watch him a little bit more so that, okay, well, what else can I do to be like that guy? And then a culture starts to create. And when it's a situation where you're uplifting these players that are brand new, well, now they feel comfortable quicker. Now they make an impact quicker. And the teams that weren't doing that, and you look at all the different teams, for whatever odd reason, they didn't have that culture. It was, no, Rook, you're in the back of the bus. Yeah. No, Rook, you're doing this. No, Rook, you're doing that. And then those guys just sit there and they don't want to say a word. They don't want to say boo. And then they don't come out of their shell until 4 years, 5 years down the road when they actually feel comfortable. So hockey has changed massively in that regard. And I think that, you know, the teams that you see that have the most success year after year have a culture, because you hear story after story after story. And I know the one, and obviously his name's a bit of a controversial right now, but Carter Hart. When Carter Hart broke into the NHL and he was playing in the AHL, Claude Giroux and Jacob Voracek, they went up to him. They actually shared an apartment at the time. And they're like, you know what? You can go live in our place. Go live in our apartment. We'll take care of the bill. Don't worry about the hotel. And then they'd go pick him up every day. So now what does Carter Hart do? He goes, whoa, that's unbelievable. I've got two guys that are the captains of the team. They've got my back. Feel comfortable. Now all of a sudden I'm starting to play better. And those are just certain teams across the league. You hear those stories. Other teams you don't. And then you wonder why one team's up here versus one team being down here. And then, you know, how long it stretches. So
Rookie initiations for teams. I hope, Shawn, this is true in hockey. In football, I'm not sure what it looks like across
just rookie dinner now.
North America. Okay, rookie dinner.
Yeah.
At the University of Calgary, the boys were told you're going to put on skits. But Kennellan would take the leaders in, the captains, and say, we're going to have trainers there. We're going to have female trainers there. We're going to have managers. We're going to have the athletic department head. If anything's out of line, and I don't have to tell you what's out of line. You know what out of line is. If it's out of line, that rookie's gone and you're with them. And they conducted themselves a certain way in keeping with what you were saying.
Yeah.
And the other thing that comes to mind about our equipment manager at York when I first went there in 78 was a trainer for the Boston Bruins. And he is a great old fella, and he would tell stories about the Bruins. But when he first got to Boston, he's heaving the bags onto the bus, and those hockey bags. I see these 8-year-olds carrying these bags. Well, now they got wheels on the bags, which is pretty cool. Back then they didn't. And this guy's, the bus is late. The guys are mad, and he's heaving these bags, and all of a sudden another bag comes flying behind him, and then another one. Somebody else is helping him. He's sweating like crazy. Looks behind him, and who is it? Bobby Orr. He was that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And they had successful teams. So I hope that becomes an epidemic in sport where we become more inclusive. I mean, if you've got a rookie that's too good for everybody, somebody's got to talk to him. But, you know, you got the scared young kid.
Yep.
Get him mentored. When Brendan went to Montreal, Josh Georges and his wife took him in, and the only thing they asked of him was he walk the pet bulldog once a day. But, you know, as a 19 or 20-year-old in Montreal, you can get in a lot of trouble.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest things, right? Like, you can get into, if you don't have the right guidance, you can get into a lot of trouble in any city that you want. And there's stories in every single city with guys that are 19, 20, 21, because all of a sudden now you get making millions of dollars, and okay, well, I just left junior. I can do whatever I want there. Now I'm here. Now I can truly do whatever I want.
Yeah.
What's going on? So that's why I think that, you know, having the veteran leadership, but the right veteran leadership makes such a massive difference in locker rooms. And that's why teams are always searching for guys. I want to stay in the cup. I want to stay in the cup, because they feel those are the guys that know how to do things properly to get to where they want to go. Now, is that true all the time? Not necessarily, but there is a process. There is details that come with it. There is a type of way that you have to play. And then that trickles down to the rest of the players. It's no different why the Oilers brought back Corey Perry, because he has lived that for a long time. What is it, 20 seasons almost now? 19?
Yeah, it's
same
close.
age as 19.
Because I feel like, was the 04 draft?
No, he was
he
03.
03?
He was with me. No, he was with me.
Was he?
03, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Really?
he's been in the league for 19 years.
Yeah.
And so a guy that's won in Anaheim, right? He's been to the dance with almost, was it 5 teams? I think that was his stat, and he's lost, obviously. But teams keep bringing him in. Why? Like, I love Corey Perry.
He
but
can
don't
get you
act
to the
like-
finals.
Don't act like he's the best skater in the world.
Yeah.
Don't act like he's got the most skill in the world anymore.
He's changed his, he's a different
he's
player.
had to
He's a
completely
new
change
role.
his game, but the one thing that remains the same is his character. And yeah, I know that there was stuff that happened in Chicago and whatever. But when it comes to the locker room and the players, his character is the exact same. And that's why teams consistently try to bring him in.
Yeah.
One NHLer who remained nameless, veteran, said, best teammate I've ever had. Bar none, Corey Perry.
Wow. There you go. I mean, that says a lot, right? That's why you bring a guy like that in the room.
Yeah, I'm sure McDavid and Leon were very much in favor of wanting to have him back. And,
Yep.
we saw last year with Evander Kane, Leon had his moment with Kane, but also Perry had moments early. Like Corey Perry, I think that was, or was that a little bit after a while? I can't remember. There was that moment where he was with Kane trying to keep him in check, and he immediately took on that leadership role on a brand new team. So it was he's just one of those guys. I know there's a lot of people upset about the signing when it happens. And I think the money and when you're going into the business side of things,
that's why
they're
people
valid.
are upset. Yep.
But in terms of the player part of it, I think people are pretty pleased with that. This is the EST Hangout live on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Matt Iwanyk, Shawn, Belle, Dash from Oilers Live, and then Ron McIntyre. He is the author of Gridiron Wisdom, a playbook for leadership. I did have a message in in the Nasty Chat asking, where is the book available? I'm seeing it available pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Chapters / Indigo, whatever you want to call it.
Buy it directly from your website.
Thank you, Dash.
You're welcome.
RonMcIntyrebooks.com is the website. McIntyre. That's how you spell McIntyre. RonMcIntyrebooks.com.
He probably won't say it, but I will. It's more beneficial for Ron to buy it from the website.
Yeah, I have no trouble saying that.
Okay. No, go for it. No, but it is wherever you get books too as well.
It's funny. I've met a couple local. This is a local history. This is Alberta specific. And I know, again, and how many books it's going to sell kind of because the football community. Sales are down in Europe right now. Nobody seems to. But
flying off the shelves in Wynyard, Saskatchewan.
Better be. But for local historians, it's pretty tough. Your margins, if you go through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, they're pretty minimal. So
okay, there you go. RonMcIntyreBooks.com. The only place you can get it.
The only place. One and only.
And the number of people who bought it from RonMcIntyreBooks.com has probably, and I've said this before, it's saved my marriage because now I can write another one. So the response has been great from the football guys. And I don't know, Shawn, if any hockey guys will pick it up, but it seems like, I hate to say his name because he's going to listen to the podcast, but Ian out in Tawasin with the Delta Hockey Academy, the last 50 pages really resonate with him. Yep. And one of the things that, and I'd be curious, Shawn, how you would feel about this, or Dash as a father. One of the things that Peter did is accountability was super high on his assistant coaches. So you would, coaches are really good at saying, you're a good player. You're too slow, McIntyre. You're a little lazy in some of the conditioning drills, McIntyre, but you do this right and you do this. Well, what Cannellan did, which was so interesting for me, and I don't know, Shawn, you're a coach, how you'd feel about this, but he would give a questionnaire to the players to evaluate the coaches. And some of the questions were highly personal and could be really damning for a coach. For example, one of the questions that Cannellan asked his guys would be that, is your coach interested in your success? Does he want you to be successful? Now, could you imagine as a coach getting a negative to that one, what that would do to you?
Oh yeah, that'd be hard to deal with, especially because well, actually, you know what? I don't know if it would be hard because I'm just thinking about all the coaches that I've had in our organization. I think that some people would take it as like legitimate criticism and say, okay, I want to try to improve, and I think others would be like, who cares? It's a kid. I'm out. So I think it would go two ways. I do think it'd be actually really interesting to hear that and to see how they would value those coaches. But I'd also really like to see the reaction from the coach more than anything, because I think the reaction speaks volumes. right? It speaks volumes. It tells me exactly what you're in it for. So if it's a coach that's like, they're young kids, who cares? I don't care about what they have to say. Well, you know that you probably shouldn't be leading a kid anyway. And the other ones that probably take it and say, yeah, they can be mad, but then, okay, take it in. Okay, now I'll make myself better. So those are the kids that you want to be coaching your kids. So
I've been in sales for 25 years, and I'm not sure it's much different in the real world than in business. Ultimately, I think I've had bosses or managers of me that have taken my ideas and taken my work and taken credit for it. And I've also had managers that will do something incredible and give you the credit for it, even though you did very little. And I try to be more the latter as a sales manager now in my career. And I think that empowering your employees and empowering the people that are around you just make you look better as a manager, in my opinion. And I would hope that that's kind of spread across sports, business, culture, life, period. But I know it's not always like that.
it's not. It's definitely not always like that. But yeah, it would be a cool experiment for sure. It really would. Because criticism's hard to take. And not everyone can take criticism. And
why'd you look at me? What was that look for? Not everyone can take criticism, Matt.
There we go, right there.
What's
I was just looking at you to bring you into the conversation.
And look at his reaction, Belle.
Right at that very moment.
Why are you so defensive?
People can't take criticism.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah,
I was just trying to bring you to the conversation.
Your defensive speaks volumes.
Looking people in the eyes, like that's how we do things. And then boom, here we go.
That one moment
that was
to
like
look
a
me in the
lighter.
eyes. That one moment you look at me in the eyes.
Oh, that's so good.
We'll have to get to the root of this, man.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay, Matty? Do you want to talk?
Well, I think you feel like I don't take criticism well.
I think he's right.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to go rewatch that. You pointed out, like, everyone would see. You looked right at me at that moment. You could have waited a half a second or went a half a second earlier. No, you went right at that moment.
As it was coming out, just happened to look at you.
Who can I talk about? Who can I look at in this room when I'm talking about criticism?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Matt,
I'm not going to say that I meant
what
to
am I
do
going to
it.
say?
No, even though I didn't.
I saw it in your eyes, Belle.
You saw it in my eyes?
I saw it in your
Yeah.
eyes.
Be used to the criticism. I mean, if anybody around here gets it more, it's
Well, that's what I was going to. I get ripped on a lot.
like,
I think
imagine if you were wearing shorts today.
Oh, that's so good.
Those legs close up to the camera. Anyways.
Gotta ask, hey, longtime coach over there. Bowsy, how long have you been coaching now?
10 years.
10 years? Wow. Coaching influences. Do you draw on past coaches that have coached you, or like where are the influences that have helped shape you guys as coaches and the way you've treated your players?
I really believe this. Anybody that goes out there with kids and hangs a whistle around their neck and spends time with them and is late for supper and deserves respect. So, all through Bantam football, we had guys, and some of them were funny. They were so hard on us. But the guys that really impacted me, it started in high school. Guys like Jim Gilfillan, he was my defensive coach in high school. He's on the cover.
He's on the cover.
Yeah. And Jim passed away a few years ago. And we ended up teaching and becoming friends. In university, there was a guy named Frank Cosentino, who was an Eskimos quarterback. And you could never tell with Frank if we were winning or losing. And they just had the same thing that those guys in the book had. They treated us with, but they would hold you to a standard. Like there are some things, and I crossed that line in high school, but I was told that's not acceptable. They were, yeah. The coaching tree, I was very fortunate for sure.
Yeah, I think I picked up a lot of like different things from a lot of different coaches, but I would say pro coaches, Guy Boucher was actually really good because he was actually a psych major. So when he came in, athletes are so there's so much into what they do. Their routine is everything for athletes, and he'd come in and he'd challenge our routines all the time. And it was funny because as you start to think about that routine. So I get up at 8:00 in the morning. I have this specific breakfast. I get to the rink at this specific time. I'm on the ice at this specific time. We're off the ice. I go eat. I do this. I do that. All of it's routine, it's regimented. But at any point, something happens in your day that deviates that. A lot of players, they spiral out of control because they don't understand how to, deal with that routine being busted. And so Guy would routinely bust our routines, and he'll be like, well, why are you guys upset? Well, that's what we do. And he'd be like, did you forget how to skate? Did you forget how to pass?
Right.
And so he'd always challenge us. And so there was times where like we wouldn't practice for 3 days and then we show up and play. And guys would be like, we got to get a touch in, coach. No, you don't. He goes, it's all mental. So figure it out. But then those games that we'd play after those, we'd be the best. Those would be the best games we played. And so I started like, after I left him, started thinking more and more about like that stuff and how effective it actually was to kind of change our mindsets. So be saying that we need to become adaptable. We need to now figure out adversity because adversity happens in everybody's life every single time. So it's how do you deal with that? And I thought his messages were really, really, really good. I thought they were really smart. And then, as I started coaching, there's different guys around the city that kind of thought the same way, but they were very structured, very detailed. And then the last piece is just having, I guess, the failures. So when I went to Europe, we went to championships 2 out of the 4 years. We lost in them for different reasons. As soon as I left, within my first 4 years, we went to the championship 3 or 4 years and lost every single time. So within a span of basically 8 years, I was in the finals 6 times.
Right.
And lost every single time. And so then having to try to figure, okay, why did we lose here? Or why did we lose there? Kind of just started to like shape how I thought about things. And then obviously having Guy and then having, some of the coaches that I've coached with, I think have helped shape. And then here's one of the craziest things ever, Kevin Constantine.
Oh, no way.
I do not like that human being in any way, shape, or form, but man, was he detail oriented. And it was to the point where it was like, okay, that defenseman's a lefty, that defenseman's a righty. So trying to figure out what's the right angle in which to take to him so that you're taking away most of his plays. So that stuff, I was like, oh, actually, that's really cool too, because now you can learn pressure points and how to force guys in certain fashions so that you can get the best out of it. And he actually was really good for teaching that. There was just everything else that was an abomination.
Tri-City?
He was in, he coached me in Houston.
Minnesota.
Storm team,
Okay. Is that right?
So,
Okay.
Is it okay if I ask questions?
Absolutely.
I don't want to break union rules here. But so let's go to the Boucher. I was really surprised when you said 3 days. We might not be on the ice for a couple days.
yeah.
One of the things in football is we have coaches that are copycats. So they see an offense on TV and they got to run that offense. And they don't have the players to run that offense. So they don't have lockdown corners, let's say, but they'll run a defense that requires lockdown corners. And it's just stupid, right? And so one of the things about the NHL is I've become familiar through kind of my workout with the Delta Hockey Academy with some of the pros is what a grind that season is.
Oh, yeah.
Like I can't, to me, the most physical game in the world, and football guys, I'm sorry, it's not even close, it's hockey. The impact, the boards, the speed at which you guys play the game, it just astonishes me. And I played till I was 14 or 15, so I kind of got a little glimpse of that. But now hockey players are so well conditioned. There is no difference between an NHL hockey player and a CFL player. I've seen them in the weight room. They all have 42-inch verticals. They all got bench presses. They all do the box jumps. In fact, the hockey players tend to be more explosive than defensive backs or skill positions. So we've seen this thing in hockey. But then, okay, Shawn, here comes the question. Why are NHL coaches still doing things that they did 50 years ago?
Because we're 50 years behind everything else in terms of the scientific side of sport.
And my example is your guys beat, like, let's say you're the Islanders coach. I don't know what they're doing today, but they're on the road. But let's say the Oilers lost last night and the coach says, well, there's a morning skate. Like, if I'm one of those guys that played it overtime and I got to put my skates on the next morning and I'm not getting the rest, we know about central nervous systems now. We know how they can be overburdened. Am I right in saying that needs to be a bit of a culture change in hockey from a guy who knows nothing about hockey?
Yes. Okay. Because
My God, yes.
when it's hockey players are wired in the sense that they always want to be on the ice. And whether that's, it's just, I don't personally think that, let me rephrase that. They think quantity over quality. That's the best way to describe that. So I also have a training company, and all these kids in the middle of summer, all they want to do is they want to do more. They want to do more. They want to do more. And we had kids that were on the ice 3 times in a day. They were working out as well. So essentially that's 4, activities throughout the day. And then halfway through the summer, they're like, man, I'm tired. We're like, well, no kidding, you're tired because all you've been doing is doing more. And so at some point, your body needs to rest because rest is actually a weapon. So utilizing that, and that's what Guy did, is that he utilized rest as a weapon to make sure that we were ready, because the first thing that goes for the most part, yes, it's your body, but it's actually your mind. When you're tired and exhausted, your mind's the first thing that goes. So
which affects everything else.
Which then affects everything else. And so part of the reason why he always threw us off and tried to create adversity was because now he was actually training our minds to say, okay, well, it doesn't matter what happens, we can still go. And so we actually became a very consistent hockey team. We're a very good hockey team. So looking back on it this far and now thinking about the messages that he was putting out there, I was like, that was really smart. But also at the same time, I look at it now and it's like, okay, well, hockey is advanced so much in its gameplay. Hockey's advanced so much in how much the players train and how strong they are, which was to your point. But at the same time, I'm not sure it's all like calculated in its quality every single time, because there should be more days off. It's an 82 game schedule. You travel, right? Day after game, you're traveling to the next city. There's always the optional skates, but do the star players actually need to go out for those optional skates? Like that, those are questions that you'd honestly ask yourself, because Connor McDavid plays 20, 25 minutes a game, you could argue, and a lot of that is high speed. So I want him to be rested. So don't skate. But I do agree with you. I think it's a little bit, it needs to improve what they're trying to do. I think they need to utilize way more rest. And then do stuff off from a scientific side of things. If you don't want to believe that's just, here's the science on it. Because the science will usually tell you what you need to try to do. And I'm not a science guy where I said this is the be all end all. It's kind of like analytics for me. Yes, there's points where you need these certain things, but rest from a scientific side of things is a big deal.
I think it was the Vancouver Canucks a number of years ago. They hired a sleep specialist or something. Yeah. And that was immediately one of the things they did is that they didn't want to fly out after games. That was one of the biggest things. When they were on the road and they played a game in New York and they had to fly to Carolina, get a good night's rest, fly in the next morning. And that's what I've seen that happen now in soccer and stuff too. Teams will stay, even practice the next day in that city, then fly to make sure that they get a proper rest, as opposed to, even though the planes are unbelievable nowadays for the players. You're flying at night, but it's just that you're not getting that good sleep until what time you get in the hotel room.
Exactly.
Like 2, 3 in the morning, whatever it is, or when you're flying back home. I think Joe Girardi, when he was with the Yankees during spring training or something, he said a thing he didn't want to see anyone at the facility before 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. He was like, I want you to get sleep. I want you to be rested when you're coming to spring training. We will start things later. Make sure you sleep.
That's just the New York way.
It's the New York way.
Start everything at 10 a.m.
Just couldn't win the World Series.
I think hockey, probably, if you take all the major sports that are out there, hockey probably is guilty of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bellsy, but self-load managing. There's basketball is there a little bit, but you don't see anybody in football going, you know what, I think I need to take a couple of, possessions off here because I need my rest. And right. And it's not like Draisaitl's taking shifts off, but Draisaitl's taking shifts off.
Yeah.
Does that not speak to the sport a little bit, that the fact that they need to self-load manage themselves because the team or the culture of hockey isn't doing it for them? Or am I off?
I don't think you're off. I just think there's moments in the game where guys can rest. And I think that's what you see from Draisaitl, and I think you see that from McDavid. And there's times within the play that they're resting.
Yep.
And it can't be always go, go, go. Right? So it's lower levels, it's go, go, go. At the higher levels, I think there's times and moments where you need to be calculating what you're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to sit back here. Now I'm going to jump into that spot. Now the burst comes. And I do think that you see a lot of star players do that stuff because they think at a different level, though.
Right.
Because they're the star players. But if you looked at a guy that was a grinder, well, he's a constantly go, go, go because that's what he has to do. So
I think Ryan Pollock's still trying to get off the ice.
Exactly. So I don't think you're wrong in that sense because I do think they do that. But hockey has a culture of it's still old school. And old school was like, it's got to be hard every single day. And it's like, we're going to push you to your limits every single day. Yeah, there's times for it. 100% there's times for it. But there's other times where you have to figure out, okay, I'm 2 days out. Do I need to really go into the gym and be lifting 400 on a deadlift? Why? Because in 2 days actually is when you're more sore than the day before, right? So there's like times within that year and like schedule where maybe you can be a little bit more pointed and you can build up, you can load more, you can go after guys more. And then there's other times where you have to bring that down. And I just still think hockey, just a little bit too much. We got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And
you were a football guy. Football's
high school.
Urban Meyer said when Ohio State last won the national title, he said our motto was 2 to 4, A to B plus 2. 2 to 4 is the length of the play, 2 to 4 seconds. A to B plus 2 steps. So every play in football, there's no excuse not to go hard because you're going to get a rest. Hockey, yeah, okay, you get your rest, maybe a minute or something. And after getting like a defenseman, blasted into the boards. But football's a different deal. 2 to 4 seconds. 40-second shifts aren't uncommon. 30 seconds. I don't know what do they aim for, something like that.
50?
But
Yeah, 45.
40.
Yeah, okay, 45. So you got
They're Jason Strudwick 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
So this is where
Ryan
fans
Pollock.
drive me crazy because a 45. Okay, he's not going hard. 45 seconds. 45 seconds is like running a 400.
Yeah.
You don't sprint a 400.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So it's a very, very different game. And I think Yzerman, I read something where he said, to reinforce what Shawn, I'd like to disagree with Shawn here sometime today, but he said that
I've learned to never disagree with Shawn.
there's a couple shifts in a game that are going to determine the outcome. And Yzerman could go from, say, a 90% to his eyes would turn, and that was the shift, and you knew something special was going to happen. But he would consciously make that happen. In football, you can't, because you don't know if you take this play off. It could be the game, and I guess that's true in hockey too. But football's a different deal. You get 60 shots in a game.
Yep.
And
it's a little bit different because every play in football, it's like that is your time that you have to go.
Right.
In hockey, it's okay. Well, I can still get through this shift if I turn it down to an 80%, but I don't make any mistakes. Then you're still
my
good.
job.
You're still fine. But there's those times where now all of a sudden I've got to turn it up because you saw the game yesterday. In the last 10 minutes of the game, all of a sudden it got way more intense. Well, what changed? The score was tied, but earlier in the game, both teams are still trying to win and lose. But you could see, and actually multiple players talked about it was a snooze fest.
Yeah,
they weren't going through the motions. I thought both teams were working. But it was different, right? Like the level of intensity rose because of the time of the game. And so now really nobody wanted to lose. And the others were obviously pissed off because they allowed a team back in.
Yeah.
You had the other team, the Islanders, being like, well, we're back in it. Let's go get it.
Yeah. We got a chance now.
There's that ebb and flow in the game. So I do think it happens a little bit more in hockey. And we probably shouldn't say it happens in hockey, but
I think part of last night was McDavid got that Yzerman glimmer in his eye. He just kind of said, I got 3. I'm 2 more. I might be able to do this here.
And the mentality is don't lose a shift.
Yeah.
That's what all the guys will always say. Like, hey, we want to make sure we're winning the shift. Don't lose a shift.
Yeah.
And then we can keep that going. It's momentum now. And that's how they build their momentum. And then it kind of gets to that wave. And then, boom, here we go. Yzerman moment, McDavid moment. We're flying around the ice.
Yep.
Portions of this hour of the EST Hangout brought to you by the High Product Marketing, official merch partner of Edmonton Sports Talk. Promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out, thehighproductmarketing.com. With Gridiron Wisdom, Ron. Lots of stories in here that you have. Is there a favorite story you came across for the book?
Every program had a story that I thought was kind of fun. Now, if you can imagine this, Raymond... The Raymond coach, they all said that there's no point to sport unless you're having fun doing it. Like, if you're hating it, and I've seen teams go into locker rooms where they're just hating it. Like, life's too short. There's got to be some joy in it. But the Raymond coaches, when they first brought football, they were trying to promote it in Raymond because it was this huge basketball community. Tons of championships, provincials, and they ran a teacher-student football game, full contact.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Iwanyk, your dad was a principal. Now, can you imagine? So the boys got pretty fired up to play these teachers, and there's a librarian, and this librarian had never played sports, and he made Iwanyk's legs look big. Like, this guy was, was tight, and.
Sorry, Matt.
He brought his kids' shoulder pads, like those children's shoulder pads that you'd buy a 4-year-old, and he said, "Put me in." And they said, "No, you can't." But he just he got in there. First play, broke his collarbone.
Oh man!
Now and you should hear these guys 60 years later talking about this and the joy they took out of that whole experience. Gibb, the basketball coach, got tackled on the 5 going in, or the teachers would have won the game, and he's still getting razzed like it's the dressing room.
Awesome.
About this, and he said, I was really underrated as a running back, and these guys are like, "No, you sucked. You didn't get 6, but every one of those teams, there was stories. Some of them are really, I wouldn't, there's a couple of stories I wouldn't get into because I'd probably get teary-eyed and you guys would feel uncomfortable. But just on how coaches touch the lives of kids, where some of those stories are just, and I am not going to tell you one of those. But, the Normie Kwong, who wasn't allowed into public pools being Chinese in the early 50s. His sister said, "We're not welcome there." Growing up to become a captain and a leader of the Eskimos, and our eventual lieutenant governor, and the stories that he has about that transition. And then at the end of the line, him saying how much he loved this province. Really heart-touching. And there's lots in there. One neat story about the Dinos, I'll just go through a couple. The Dinos trainer, so I talked earlier about the trainer with the Boston Bruins. Well, right. Newens, Mike Newens. So you've got the Newens family were sports broadcasters in Calgary. Well, his son became the equipment manager at age 18, or maybe a little earlier with the Dinos. Well, this kid became so popular, he introduced him to reggae and ska and punk in the early 80s. And these guys they bought him a stereo and they'd be dancing around and having fun in the locker room. And then they looked at Newens and they said, "Man, I like your haircut." And he had one of these hockey haircuts that these guys have with the big hair in the back. And Newens would say, "Okay, if you guys want your haircuts, come Sunday and I'll cut hair." Well, there was 40 guys there getting their haircuts off the guy. And when I talked to Tony Spallettini initially about the Dinos, what made them great, very early in the conversation, he said, "You better get to know Newens."
He didn't say the mullets? No,
the mullets were, they had
awesome.
it, and they had a lot of pride in how they looked, but they had the mullets. But Newens, talk to Newens. And then for the second book, I'm really getting into like the Mandrusiak family in Edmonton, what the equipment manager is. As a player and coach, I always thought it revolved around me as a player. And as a coach, I thought, I got to control this thing. And if we lose, I go to the mirror. And that's the way. I didn't sleep after losses. And wins, as Shawn pointed out earlier, where we didn't play well, I didn't sleep well after those ones either. That drove me even crazier. But anyway, the equipment managers, the Mandrusiaks and Newens, when I talked to them about, Newens said he was even harder on the wins losses. He said, I said, so how do you guys feel about the University of Alberta down there? He goes, hate them. I hated them. And I hated Guelph, and I hated Western Ontario, and I hated Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We wanted to beat them all, and I wanted my guys to look better than them. I wanted my guys, when they leave the dressing room, to look like knights. And I took a lot of pride in how our kids looked, or our players looked. Fiercely competitive. That was a real eye-opener for me, because I'd never seen, I thought kind of it was all about me but that competitive thing resonated through these programs.
Right.
Anyway.
Part of that culture. Yeah.
I got to ask about a coach that I'm a big fan of, that I know that you're a big fan of. Your son told me this yesterday. Big Mike Leech guy.
Yeah, innovator.
Did you like him for the way he coached football, or just also everything else? Because he would talk about like pirates and stuff. And it was fascinating listening to him talk about pirates and things like that. He loved pirates.
Okay.
Where was the love of Mike Leech for you?
Leech was an innovator, but he didn't invent his offense.
The air raid.
He built the air raid on the shoulders of guys before him. And it goes back to the 60s. And what I liked, and I was really brokenhearted when Leech passed, because... And I don't know how Shawn, with him being a coach, sometimes we make the game too complicated. He made the game less complicated. So when you're running routes, you can have route trees and 78 and 34 and da, 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 da. Look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this guy. You're the quarterback. I want you to go from right to left. I want you to, is there free safety up? Are the weights on the, and Leach would go, no. Receivers run to the grass where there's opening, and quarterback, get used to seeing the field like the receiver does, and throw to where the grass is, and the receiver will be there. That was it.
Really, eh?
That was it. And he basically ran 4 routes. And so...
It's like Tecmo Bowl, Matty.
His offenses were, like, his teams are so much fun to watch. And defense was tough. Like, his team was a struggle on defense usually, but offensively, they were great.
So where you guys would have liked him because, well, maybe you wouldn't have, because it'd be like Belichick. I thought, and I always had great respect for Belichick and the kind of teams he had, because they were so lasered in on. I guess when they were down to Atlanta, the guys walked into the dressing room at halftime, and I don't know what they were doing.
In that Super Bowl with the comeback?
Yeah. How much were they down?
20, yeah.
The guys walked into the dressing room, and they couldn't tell whether the Patriots were winning or losing.
Oh, wow. Down to business.
It was the same as every other game that year. What do we got to do? And they win the thing. So that was the thing I respect about Belichick. His current status, boyfriend, girlfriend's kind of unusual with his 24-year-old girlfriend. So, Bill is...
I loved the photos of Halloween. They did a couple's costume.
Okay.
Like, and it's just like there's 73-year-old Bill Belichick with 24-year-old girlfriend doing couple's costumes.
What did they dress as?
I forgot.
Kelsey and Taylor Swift.
But it was
that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
Belichick dressing up as Kelsey. I like.
And then I think she dressed up as him too or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he was a fisherman. She was like a mermaid that he caught.
Makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it's just okay.
Good for him.
So back to Leach. The other thing about Mike was he would get kind of bored talking about football. And, football, he's doing it 16 hours a day. So you could talk about Sasquatches with him.
Yes.
And he'd tell you, I just don't think they're Sasquatches. Or what do you think of the playoff? There's no playoff in football, college football. And he says, it's stupid. Every other league in the world has a playoff. We don't have a playoff. Or he talk about the NFL, and he would talk about the copycat offenses and how they just get hired to run the same thing the guy down the street does, and But he would have opinions, and he really didn't care. It was his opinion.
He did a 3-minute long thing, one press conference about weddings. just go get eloped and like this whole thing. Like that's who Mike Leech was. Like you could ask him about those things, and he'd have the conversation. I think he was maybe one about how to eat a sandwich. Or there was another coach that I know for sure was asked about that. But like, what's your path to eating a sandwich? Do you start with the corners? Do you go in the middle? And like would have a well thought out answer of like, no, this is how I do it. And like it goes the whole time. Like,
Why did my brain go
He
to
had
him
a
having
fascination with like, again, pirates and stuff like that. Like Mike Leech was a character in a great way, and it was very sad when he passed a couple of years ago.
My brain went straight to
great
Rashad
football
talking
coach,
about
but
eating
also
wings.
yeah. Oh, I'm sure if you had a press, if we brought Mike Leech on the Hangout, we probably would spend like a couple minutes on football, and then probably want to just get to him about talking about all sorts of random crap because you want to hear what Mike Leech has to say about that.
Like, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh my God, I bet Mike Leech would have had something to grip.
He hated hot dogs. He told
But
me.
is it a sandwich?
This is why we tune into the Reed Wilkins show.
Exactly.
In part, Leech.
He did weigh in on the hot dog debate.
Did he?
He does not like hot dogs as well. That comes out.
I know lots about Leech.
Hilarious.
Kind of a weird, you know. He wrote a book about Geronimo. He was a lawyer, and he gave up law school. His first couple of years coaching, he lived in a trailer,
Oh, wow.
and not a big trailer. A trailer as big as this room, with no air conditioning in Iowa. And his wife's looking at him like, and he's substitute teaching, and he was in love with the game.
I got 43 seconds of him being asked, is hot dog a sandwich?
I don't like hot dogs. I think I didn't like hot dogs when I was a kid, and I think that's some of that started with when I was a real young kid. I'd have bologna sandwich after bologna sandwich, and so then anything that even remotely resembled bologna, I hated. And everybody says go to the ball game and eat a hot dog, not me. And no, it's not a sandwich. I'm not into hot dogs, and with all due respect to those that are, but they can have mine, so there'll be more for them.
With all due respect to the hot dog community.
That was at a Pac-12 media conference.
That's so good.
Like that's not just in a random him
That's
finding him on the
beautiful.
street. That's at a press conference to promote the Washington State Cougars when he was the coach of them at the time, and
Amazing.
those random questions would get asked, and then there's I
I feel like that's what would happen if we asked Bellsy about the Rouge.
Oh well,
No.
I gotta ask Ron.
No, we're not
How
getting
long
in this again.
You've been around football for a long time. Just gotta ask because Bellsy and I have a conversation and a little debate here.
A little debate, yeah.
Are
I
you
would
in
say
favor?
ours is civil.
Yes.
Tommy's and his are not
No.
civil.
Are you in favor of the Rouge? Should the Canadian Football and U Sport keep the Rouge, or should they get rid of it?
Can I preface
Or
something,
should they
though?
amend it?
Can I preface it?
No.
Are you sure?
I think we need to just get his thoughts.
Well, can I at least say that I would like to amend it first before saying gas the whole
I
thing?
didn't want to. That's why I added the third there.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Keep it, get rid of it, amend it. I didn't want him to know who's who.
Okay, screw the Rouge. Get rid of it. How do you feel?
Well, as a Canadian, not that that matters, but our field's 110 yards long. It's wide. It's frozen most of the year. An offense drives the field. They miss the field goal. They get a point. The guys can run the ball out. Is it a hill to die on? For me, no. I could live with or without it. But then I watch these NFL guys lining up these 58. The other night, that kid hitting the 59 or 58 yarder. Would I make the post skinnier? Yeah. I think these guys are just too good now. Is that true in the CFL? I'm not sure. So I hate to say it.
Not with yes.
Like you asked me about, you can ask me other things and I give you a clear answer. I would probably keep the single, but I'm not going to fight Shawn Belle for it.
That's fair.
I like
Fair
that
enough.
answer.
That's
yeah.
very fair. We have. You could go with your amendment. if
Okay,
you'd
so
like
my
to.
amendment is that the single's now gone, but if you don't run it out, it goes to the 5-yard line. So your punishment for not running that ball out is it's okay. You can go to the 5-yard line, and now you're at a disadvantage because you're working with a smaller amount of field. So now it might force guys to actually try to run it out. That's my amendment.
And I like that.
There you go. I actually think about stuff. I don't just say, hey, I hate the Rouge. I want to get rid of it. One of us does at Hello Hockey, but it ain't me.
I would just like to say that I'm being thanked for poking the bear.
The question did have to come up. As somebody who's been around football in this country for a very long time, I'm glad we got it out there. And now,
So for the record, it was, you like my idea.
he likes your idea.
No, for the record, I like the idea of if you make an attempt to make a play, the no yards thing in the States kind of drives me a little crazy. I'd like to see an active play on it. I get it. But for that guy to run it out, to risk life and limb to get it out of the end zone, I think should be rewarded. Move it out to the 20. If you're going to sit back there and run around and kill time, you're out at the 5. Now you're at a disadvantage.
The amendment to the amendment.
We're having all sorts, but we'll figure this out.
Belle's taking that as a win.
Okay, but I got to tell
That's
you.
a win.
He wasn't
That's a
completely
win.
against it. Yeah,
no, but
because
that's
you're
100% a win.
for me,
it's
amendment
100%
to the
a win.
yes, because there's not a lot of people on your
Because there was an
side
amendment to
fully.
the amendment.
Yeah, there's a lot
There's
of
an amendment.
long live the Rouge comments in there.
Thank you to those people. I respect those people greatly as well on this. Oh, I've got that there.
There it is.
Long live the Rouge, but I could live with the amendment. I would just see is that a missed field goal that goes through the end zone, there's no point. But if it lands in the end zone and the team doesn't return it, then it's a point. Because it should be there for the team. The team, it's there so the team returns it.
So what's the kicker supposed to do? Lay off?
Yeah.
Like,
well, then that's
There we go, Matty. Now what's up?
Make your field goal.
Now what's up, Matty?
That's where you have to make your field goal. If you miss your field goal, then why? Like that's where
Now kickers
the
are-
rules, the Rouge is in place so that the team is encouraged to return. If they don't have a chance to return it, why should they give up a point?
So then you're using your punter for the field goals so that it goes nice and high and lands in the end zone.
The punters in the CFL, that's a risky game because they have to be very skilled, Belzy.
That's weird, Matt.
You heard it here first, people. Nasty chat.
Then just keep
nasty
the Rouge
chat.
completely
That's what
as
my
is.
point is.
To keep
there
the
you
Rouge
go.
as is.
You heard it here first. Nasty chat. Dash, bringing that up.
Because the argument is that
sorry,
why
not
you get a point for missing a field goal, but you're not getting a point for missing a field goal. You're getting a point because you didn't return the ball at the end zone. Or
You're getting a point because you advanced the ball that far that you could get it in to the end zone. That's another way of looking at it. Yeah. But I really like the fact that if you try and get the ball out, I'm just restating what I said. So you can keep asking me about this Iwanyk, but I'm not changing. I collect old age security. I ain't changing.
Yours is a more
Closer to mine
complex
than
one.
it is yours.
Yours is more complex because they have to try to get it out, but they get the ball at the 20, but
He's
they don't
trying,
give up
but
a point.
Bellsy for the win.
Belzy
He's
for the
trying.
win.
Keep the Rouge. You want to know something? In the end, the league's going to still have the Rouge, and I will be the one that's still happy in the end. I added an amendment for everyone else. I just want to keep the Rouge in general. I don't think the debate should be happening anymore.
Yeah.
Matt, you're very sensitive to
Rip
criticism
City
and
deal with it.
Gotta agree with
Dash, deal with it. VR, deal with it. All the nasty chat that's been all over me for the last little bit, deal with it. My man's on the same side as me.
He amended your thing. He wasn't on your thing.
We're on the same
Amendment
side.
to the amendment.
Yeah, I had an amendment. My own amendment. Ron didn't like it.
Yeah.
Other people do.
You're sucked.
Why are you so poor at taking criticism, Matty?
Kidding, man.
I'm all good. You want to know something? We're just going to give away something right now. I got the keyword for the EST
Defer.
flyway
Hey, Matty,
to LA.
defer.
I'm going to give my people our listeners, a chance to win a trip to Los Angeles. Presented by the 780. Homegrown local shop right here in Edmonton. 780 is both the shop name and their in-house clothing brand that celebrates all things unique to E-Town. They also work close to 100 local vendors from across the 780 to help promote and get their brands off the ground. Check them out online, 780.com, or any of their 5 locations, Southgate, Londonderry, Kingsway, St. Albert, and the Outlet Mall by the airport. December 26th through to the 30th, Warriors, Clippers, Intuit Dome, Rams, Card, SoFi Stadium. Edmonton taking on either Anaheim or LA. Flights, hotel, car, all provided by Edmonton Sports Talk, and again, presented by the 780. The keyword for today to text, field, F-I-E-L-D, field. Text that to 780-218-9999. And Trev will give you a call, and then I will speak to you on the air in the next few minutes to talk to you on air. And you will have qualified as we're in our third last week of qualifying for the EST Flyaway to LA Field to 780-218-9999 to get into the qualifying opportunity today on the Hangout.
If YGT calls me, is there going to be a loop? Like, do I need to leave the room?
You'd have to leave the room.
Okay.
I think maybe.
Okay.
I think
We'll talk outside the door
it'd be. I'll actually just need my headphones if you. Thank you. Sorry, I need my headphones for that.
just in case.
Well, I got to speak in after,
they're
so I'm just
coming,
trying to think. Would it, no, I think it would work.
Well, call me, Trev.
Maybe
We'll
or
find
something,
out.
But hopefully he doesn't call you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't call you right now, too. Bringing the Rouge up. Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry, not
big
sorry. Look at it. I'm doing the work of the people.
Long live the Rouge.
Doing the work of the people.
Rip City step, no amendments required. This is why those two guys are some of the best nasties, except for Big Uke enough with the hat for Jasmine.
Right.
You could get past that.
Yeah, they didn't win Nasty of the Year, but whatever.
Who did?
They didn't.
No, none of them did.
Yeah.
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 So there you go.
There's why. Sticking up for Maddie.
Gridiron Wisdom. RonMcIntyreBooks.com if you want to get them. Again, it's McIntyre. I just want to make sure people spell that part properly. If you want to get Gridiron Wisdom, a book on football here in Alberta, and a playbook for leadership, forward by John Short. We haven't mentioned that on the show today, because you've gotten to before he passed, you gotten to know John quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every Friday morning at Destination Donuts, we'd sit, and sometimes it would go on past 2 hours. Great donuts, great company, great man. Yeah, it was special. And again, John wasn't one to talk about himself too much. You had to really push him on things, and he had in fact, when we got to hear his life story, and that took a lot of time and a lot of questioning, and I like questions. And his life story is, you could write a book. It's really amazing, being in orphanages in Detroit and Windsor, growing up in a predominantly black neighborhood where nobody liked each other based skin color, and going on to Runnymede Collegiate and playing with guys like George Chavallo, the boxer, and running scores back and forth from the Globe and Mail to, as a high school student at Maple Leaf Gardens, literally running scores back to the Globe. Oh, he was an amazing guy and such a gentleman. And it was nice to, having grown up listening to him, and when he would say, Matt has trouble being, if you disagree with him, I see that. But John Short wouldn't have the same problem. He would go, we have to agree to disagree. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was really neat.
Well played, Ron. Nice. What a subtle, smooth shot. I loved it.
I just now need Dash to come at me today, and then
Welcome
we've got
back
everything
anytime,
covered.
Ron. Welcome back anytime. I mean, I'm not the host.
But it's
so good.
But he was a great guy to talk about sports with, and Shawn talks about the locker room, and he was witness to that great Oilers dynasty, and he would give you the insides. He would tell you what really happened. And one of the things, Shawn, as a coach, there's a book called The Captain's Class you have to get. And this guy went around the world and he researched the great teams in history that would put together runs of like 8 years to see where the leadership came from. Mm-hmm. And what he found, and it was a question he had for himself, just like I had a question when I wanted answered when I wrote this book, and it was completely unexpected. And I don't know what it is with the Oilers. And if any of the Oilers are listening,
they're all listening.
I am not sure where the leadership in that room is, because I'm not in the locker room. But what this guy found when he went around the world, I mean, we're talking Australian women's field hockey team. He's talking the All Blacks. He's talking the Chicago Bulls. And what he found was, for example, and this is what drives my basketball friends crazy, when you read the book, Michael Jordan wasn't the leader. It was Cartwright. So they bring in a 7'1" veteran, 32, 34 years old. Knees are shot. And literally the Bulls are underperforming. And the manager brings Cartwright in. And Cartwright pins Jordan up against the locker and says, we're the Chicago Bulls, not the Chicago Jordans. Start treating those young guys with some dignity and respect.
All right, eh?
Yeah, it's I think one of the quotes is great teams, the players hold each other accountable, and the players uphold the standard in which the organization sets. On average teams or good teams, it's the coach.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
in our team, we always try to push the accountability for the players. Now, obviously, it's a little bit more challenging at the U18 level because they don't necessarily know how to talk to each other in the right fashion, so they kind of end up giving each other crap more than they actually try to, like, hey buddy, like we need more from you today. Like, what did you see there? Can you make a better play? I was wide open. Next time, can you maybe try this? Right? They don't have that thought process. It's always like, hey, be better, figure it out. And then they start getting defensive. But what you try to teach them is you try to now figure out ways to now talk to your teammate, because your teammate has an ego. You also have an ego. And one of the things that Mr. Boucher always taught was that coaching isn't about your way or the highway. It's not about treating everyone exactly the same. It's about managing and dealing with all the egos so that then you're treating them the same. Because if I can joke around with you, Maddie, and we can just rip each other, but me and you, Dash, we can't do the same thing, well, you guys need to feel that you're both equally
that shows
treated the same fashion. So how do I now treat you that way based on what your ego is versus what your ego was?
But I have different needs and communication skills 100%. And different,
and so that was one of the things that we try to talk to our players about, is to make sure that, well, guys, it can't be just one shoe fits all. It's how do we talk to each other? How do we learn to figure that stuff out? So, very important, but I definitely will get that book.
Yeah, it's a good one. And so to reinforce that, what he found was that the motor was the thing that drove the team, was always somebody from the middle of the pack. It wasn't the star. In fact, it was never the star.
Is that right, eh?
Yeah, because the star gets paid to score goals and to be selfish.
The J. Milne.
He's not here to defend himself.
That's a compliment. The glue guy. Right?
Okay, so we have to give Matt credit here.
Wow.
He's the engine that drives this thing. You guys do all the talking.
The little
but Matt
engine that could. Attaboy, Maddie.
Fine. Here's some credit.
I got a little something today. Hey.
So back to
I think you can, Maddie. I think you can.
I think I can.
Matt, no, you guys are doing awesome in here. And the Oilers, according to Short, and this drives my hockey guys crazy. And sorry, Messier, sorry, Gretzky, if you're listening.
Semenko.
Fogelin and Huddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they were at a real low point. And one of John's stories that I love so much was, and you've got to have a lot of empathy for defensemen. And they were really struggling, and the fingers were starting to point. And one of the things that Parcells talks about, sorry for going all over the place, is no exit doors. On good teams, there's no exit doors. You're not blaming refs. You're not blaming the other guy. You're not blaming the schedule, the NFL. You are in this. We're going to figure this crap out, and there are no exit doors.
Extreme ownership. Yep.
And the guy who pulled that was Fogelin, and Fogelin, in his quiet way, said, "We're going to the bar. I'm buying a drink. We're having one drink. Everybody's going to be here." And he set out the agenda.
Yeah.
Yet, we tend to think that if the Oilers lose, the guys out in the coast that I deal with, well, maybe you don't have the leadership you think you do. I don't think we really understand where that leadership comes from. A lot of the times it's unexpected places. And this guy found it. It was always the grinder. There was one guy that played with Munich, a soccer, and Munich should win every year, but they weren't winning. This is 30 years ago. The guy went to the manager and said, "You have to realign and I don't know soccer, You have to realign this. These guys aren't in your midfield. They're not hard workers. Coach says, I'm not changing anything. You're a player. Just play. This guy was bitter. He was a competitive guy, and he was kind of an average player, but he gave it his all. Manager didn't listen. The guy showed up at the board of directors meeting after a week and said to the board, here's what we're not doing. You might want to talk to your damn manager because we're in third place and we shouldn't be. That didn't work. Took out a full-page ad in the Munich newspaper and said, this guy, and this guy aren't doing what they're supposed to do. He said it got a little icy in the old locker room.
I guess
I can imagine, yeah.
But they went on to win the league and 7 more league championships in a row with him in the locker room. So as fans, we sit back and this is where sports talk, you can help us fans. Sometimes we'd like a glimpse into what we can't see.
Well, the one thing though about locker rooms is I don't care how close you are as media. If you're not in that locker room, you honestly don't know what's going on. And that's I took that from Dave Jamieson, who's around those Eskimos locker rooms for 14 years. And we don't know what's going on. And there's no insider out there that truly knows what's going on unless you were actually in that locker room. You don't know the dynamics. You don't know who the leaders are, as you pointed out. We don't know anything. And there's no point of even guessing almost to that because unless you're inside those rooms, or if one of those guys comes out and says it, okay, that's a different thing. But if you're not in there, you don't know. No. So then that's where sometimes I love when people want to rip on rooms and stuff like that. And it's like, well, we're not in there. We're not in there.
Evaluating the value of players and, let's jump on the Darnell Nurse train again. Well, not one person that complains and bitches about Darnell's game sees him in the dressing room and sees him communicate with Connor and Leon and how much they respect him. And, we can't always know the full value and the full story unless you're in that room.
Getting a lot of love for Ron on the Hangout today. Darcy, Ron should become a regular on this show. Chris saying, could we have Ron on a lot more? Norm saying, great Hangout. See y'all later, because he's off back to work and stuff like that. So
people you coached might have been in the chat there too, I saw. Is that Coach Mac?
It's probably my wife pretending she's Darcy.
No, it was Shawnsy.
Shawnsy, yeah.
Holy bleep, is that Coach Mac from East Glen?
Yes.
So, coached East Glen.
17 years.
How many title championships?
At East Glen?
Just overall.
See, back then the leagues were split.
Yeah.
Like the separate board and us were. I don't really know, but I'll tell you this, and this is, again, Shawn and I are like best buddies now.
Absolutely.
The best team, the most proud I've ever been of a team was we were 0-7. It was amazing. Our trainers, we started with 24 kids. We ended up with 26. And our trainers did not run on the field once to pick up one of our guys. And you couldn't tell whether we were winning or losing, and we were badly outmanned and outcoached. But our kids would always ricochet off the turf, get back up, and cheer each other on. And sometimes we were getting beat pretty handily. And then the next year, we went to the provincial semifinals. And the year after that, with Coach Dalton Smarsh at the helm. And so when the championships, there were 3 years at McNally where we didn't lose a game. But frankly, my wife could have coached that team. We had just incredible running backs. And it was easy.
I got to qualify somebody for the EST Flyaway to Los Angeles. We're all good. Who am I speaking with right now? Curtis, congratulations. You're in the mix to win the trip to Los Angeles. Have you ever been to LA before?
Once when I was a kid, but not since then.
Very nice. If you win, who would you take with you, and what would you be most excited about doing in LA? Would it be going to the NFL game, NHL game, or NBA game?
Okay, it would definitely have to be my wife. She would not let me live that one down. And then I would say probably all of the games, because I've never been to anything outside of Edmonton's pro sports. So
sweet. And who's going to win the Grey Cup? Winnipeg, Toronto?
Oof, that's a good one. I'm going to say Winnipeg just from track record.
Very well. Perfect. Congratulations. You're in the mix. Keep your phone on November 29th on the morning show because we'll do the grand prize draw. If your name is chosen, Curtis, the boys will give you a call. You got to answer your phone to win. But best of luck, and maybe you'll be the big winner on November 29th.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Congrats, Curtis, our latest qualifier for the EST Flyaway to LA. 2 more chances to qualify today on EST Afternoons, as well as the Reed Wilkins Show with Jay Milne. I want to remind you that the official drink of the EST Hangout, it is the Finnish long drink legend of 1952, a drink unlike any other sparkling refreshment, real liquor, longdrink.com/Canada. And with that, Grey Cup. How are you guys feeling about this upcoming Grey Cup? I will say this for bettors out there. The line has moved. It started at 10.5, the Bombers being favorites. According to Coolbet, it's down to 9.
Oh, it was 9.5 earlier this morning, too. So
it's
now
dropping.
9.
Money's going on the Argos.
Obviously. Betting favorites.
Well,
It's a CFL. Anything can happen. Like, I know it's Arbuckle, but anything can happen.
do you have a betting line that sponsors you guys?
Coolbet.
Okay. I'm really in favor of betting, but I'm not a bettor. So for all you bettors out there, good luck. But I'll tell you, if I have to bet, I would never bet against the Edmonton Oilers. I don't care who they're playing.
Just like your gut and your heart.
I just can't bet against my team. I could never bet against Winnipeg. I don't care if the line was 40, because they have got a culture there. When I think of Coach O'Shea, they got a Canadian president, Canadian GM.
Yep.
And they got a Canadian coach. O'Shea's team was injured, beat up. He could have brought an airlift in. He didn't. At the beginning of the year, he stuck with his guys, and he's being rewarded. If you don't fit in, the Winnipeg mantra is, if you don't fit in,
Bleep off.
Yeah.
We had a guy on yesterday, Dean. He found replica championship rings from the Bombers.
FIFO.
And there was, in one of the rings, it had that inside.
Engraved in the ring, FIFO.
Inside they had that.
Or...
Yeah.
Because we looked it up, we're like, what do you know what that means? And then we Googled it, and it was like, yeah, fit in, F off.
And as a guy who wrote a book on exemplar programs, and I did this a lot for young coaches, because there's a right way to do it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, in my humble opinion. And I think O'Shea's showing Canadian football, and coaches everywhere, there's a right way to do it.
Yep.
And he's created a neat culture. So
No, it's Chris Morris talked about wanting to, like, they're doing the right thing out there in Winnipeg himself when he was talking, in the days since he's been president of the Elks.
Yeah, I think it'd be crazy to pick anybody but the Bombers, I think, at this point, but it is the CFL. Nobody was predicting Saskatchewan to run the 13th man out there, so, anything can happen.
I'm going to Winnipeg all day.
I'm liking Toronto. I'm not going to lie.
There's a part of me that, if I was putting money on it, I'd probably put Toronto. Just
as long as Nick Arbuckle doesn't turn the ball over.
It's a big if.
It is, but it's also what kind of game plan is Ryan Dinwiddie going to call for that Argos team? Can they just, because they've got a good running game led by Kadeem Carey. They've got some really good receivers. Nick Arbuckle doesn't need to be the MVP of the game. He just needs to be a manager. Don't get rid of that football. And then the Argos defense is good. The Argos have a great special teams. Their returner, who came from Winnipeg, is dynamic. And I think this week, because they lost their quarterback, their attention to detail is just going to be on point.
If the Argos win, we'll be looking at a box score that had at least 100, 150 yards rushing for Toronto.
Yeah.
That's the way they're going to go.
And I think we'll have seen either a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown.
Yes.
Like there'll be
100%,
one of those moments where all of a sudden the Argos picked off Claros for a touchdown, or Grant does return one for a touchdown, and that helps shift some things. Yeah. But I think that the Argos will have that little extra attention to detail, and maybe the Bombers sit there. Maybe there's just a little less attention because they're thinking, well, it's the Argos. We've got this.
Yeah.
I think Matt deserves some credit here.
Really?
For a change, yeah.
For a change.
No, but you guys don't give him enough credit. I think that's pretty insightful, especially on the starting quarterback getting hurt. Everybody's going to ramp it up this week. And Dinwiddie's going to ramp it up, I hope. And it'll be, how can we protect the quarterback? Mm-hmm. What can he do properly? And these guys will all be sitting on the edge of their chair.
Well, and he has the experience. Like, people will say the Bombers, this happened to the Bombers, but the players aren't there anymore. But Ryan Dinwiddie was that quarterback who got called into the Grey Cup when Kevin Glenn got hurt in the East Final in 2007. And a guy who had never started a game, who had now all of a sudden play his first career game in the Grey Cup. He threw 3 picks against the Riders. The Riders dominated that game. It went the way, like, we're all thinking it's going to go this week with Winnipeg, Toronto.
Glenn was humming that year.
But now, like, Ryan Dinwiddie has that insight into, like, okay, this is what Nick Arbuckle's kind of going to be going through. And, like, he could talk to Nick Arbuckle directly with that, but to the team, like this is how the team felt. And I know what it's like because I was that guy. I wasn't even just part of the team. I was the guy being thrown into it.
Yeah.
And I'll be fascinated. Like maybe I'm just being optimistic. Maybe I'm just being hopeful that this will be a close game because the Bombers are a damn good football team.
Yeah, they're really good.
They've turned it on. Once they got through the injuries, they've turned it on this year.
I think that would be the reason for me as to why I think Winnipeg's going to win, because they keep climbing, right? They've been hurt all year. Now they're healthy. Everybody's kind of rolling in the same way. So now they're actually starting to peak, right? That's a big thing in sports, is when you start to peak at the right time.
Especially
playing
CFL.
your best game. Exactly.
Especially the CFL.
So that's why I have Winnipeg winning, but
they've been through their adversity. They battled what they need to battle.
They dealt with everything early in the season.
Yeah.
Now it's the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
Jay Milnes texts me and says, "Don't fool yourself, Matty. The CFL is driven by quarterback play. It's simple. Kolaros is greater than Arbuckle." Well, I'll say one thing to you, Jay. You and I made a bet last week on the Argos and the Als. Who won? Who's taking who to lunch this or sometime?
Where are you going to go for lunch?
Well, when we said I wanted to go to Refinery Grill, I've never gone to Refinery Grill.
Oh,
It's right there.
okay.
I just got a text from Glue Guy too. He said, "Thanks for the compliment, Dash." So
Yeah. No, well, you take it. Take it, Jay.
He also texted, said, "I'm kidding, Maddie's not."
I look forward to that lunch. It's going to be a fun game. I hope, at least. I want it close going into the fourth quarter. I will take that as a success. And then, even if the Bombers go win.
Yeah.
It's a big defining moment for their legacy, though, as the Bombers. You're the team that went to 5 Grey Cups in a row, but only won the first 2 and lost to Nick Arbuckle. Or you're the team that won 3 of 5, which is modern-day dynasty.
Fun time to be in Winnipeg.
Isn't it? Oh, actually... I didn't actually see the score from yesterday. I was too focused on... I was doing some Nasty Club stuff and watching the Oilers game. So Jets won, too, yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
Fastest to 15 wins in the history of the NHL.
6-3 over the Rangers. Jeez, Winnipeg, it's going well.
Like Huss is just a walking erection right now. Hey, everything's going his way.
He's not even on the lock shop today to gloat. It's going to be myself and Pat Gregoire. I'll be coming up in about 13 minutes with the lock shop. We've got lots to get to on the lock shop today. We'll talk about the lines changing in the Grey Cup. Props are supposed to drop for the Grey Cup. Hopefully by the show, if they're up, we'll go through some of those. NFL Week 11 we'll look at. NHL tonight. And also Friday is Tyson versus Paul.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen? Or do you just think this is just rigged?
Oh, I think
That's...
Go ahead, Matty.
Well, I don't know. I think it's rigged. And if Jake Paul wins, it's rigged. I'm sorry. There's nothing. Mike Tyson's not losing to Jake Paul.
I agree.
If it's legit, Mike Tyson's going to destroy Jake Paul.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so worried for this match because the last thing I want to see is Jake Paul take it to a decision.
And he wins.
And win.
Jake
I don't want to
Paul-
see Mike Tyson get knocked out at 70 years old either.
He won't. You think a Jake Paul punch is going to hurt Mike Tyson?
No, I don't. But I'm just saying.
but he won't get
I
it through.
hope. Like these are my hopes that I don't want to see that.
Jake Paul is the favorite in this too right now, which I don't like. To me, this is just like it's more rigged.
Favorite or the betting favorite?
The betting favorite. Like it's
because he's bigger,
minus
he's younger,
200, Tyson's plus 188.
Because everybody knows it's rigged.
The gloves are bigger.
But like I saw a video of Tyson this morning.
This comes down to whether Tyson
and he can move.
Inner animal instincts.
Oh no, they're out
kick
there.
in and snap, or whether he just is Floyd Mayweather and does his little exhibition. If Tyson snaps,
he's still
Jake Paul will die.
Like he still has his movement.
So then, how does Jake Paul think that this is a good idea?
Money,
because it's rigged.
Money.
That's because he's getting money and it's rigged, and he's going to be like because he's already apparently going to call it like Canelo.
He already did call it Canelo.
Well,
Bellsy, here's $100 million. Go fight Tyson.
I am not fighting Tyson.
Not for $100 million.
No.
I might.
Because he'd punch my head into orbit.
Who's going to punch anybody's head into orbit?
Well,
That's
then you
the
don't
thing,
get them $100 million then if your head's in orbit.
You got to fly to the moon to get your money.
You got to try to fish that
I'd
thing
go
back,
in, but
and
I
it's
just
not
protect
happening.
the head. Like break ribs all you want. Give me the $100 million, but break every rib I have.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're going to be in the hospital, and it's going to take $100 million to get you back to where you need to be.
I'll make sure the
none of
fight's
this
in
makes
Canada,
sense.
so I can just get my
Free healthcare. you might have to wait a year,
ahead of
but
time.
here
Here's
we
my
are.
healthcare.
Can I load this up?
I'm not, or I'll just go to the UK or something. I'm not doing that fight in the US. You kidding me?
Oh man.
Well, as a senior citizen,
Yeah.
old age security collector, pension,
Yeah.
I know how balance goes. Strength, you can kind of, there's a lot of strong old guys.
Oh, yeah.
But you just can't move. You don't have that quickness. How old is Tyson?
62, is it? Or is he a little older?
Like, if this thing isn't rigged and he wins, then that's
58.
Then Jake Paul is not a very good boxer.
But he's not. He's like, he's only fought one professional boxer ever. And I think he lost.
There is no way you should lose to a 58-year-old.
That's kind of where I'm going with it, but I think it's rigged, and that's why he's not going to win. I don't think he's a good boxer either. But I'm like, all of my instincts, every video I watch, everything that's going on, I'm like, Tyson's going to destroy this human being. But at the same time, I'm like,
I'm making
there's no way that Jake Paul's getting involved unless he's winning. Like, I just
or
don't
he's just
see a
that arrogant.
world-
Or he's that arrogant.
Maybe.
This is AccuSteel, or Road Warriors, presented by AccuSteel Heavy Haul Trailers, custom manufacturing heavy haul trailers for mining, oil and gas, equipment, and highway transportation. Get on the road with peace of mind with your large loads, AccuSteel.ca. I think he's just arrogant enough to think, and he's getting the payday. Like, the thing to me that will define is,
I think he thinks he can survive.
if Jake Paul lands a punch on Mike Tyson's not going down that long. He's fine. He's handled punches before. He's handled punches worse than a Jake Paul punch. If Mike Tyson can land a singular punch on Jake Paul can't handle that. No one can handle that. No. I don't care that it's not prime Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson at 70%, 65% is still just ridiculous, I think. And I don't want to see that. Like, I don't want to feel that punch. I want Jake Paul to feel that punch because he's getting in the ring in there. And I don't think he's getting up from that.
I would like Jake Paul to feel many punches, so then Zach can be like, come in and start crying because he loves Jake Paul so much.
Actually, he doesn't.
not.
He doesn't?
No, I don't think he
Good.
does.
I get it, the young generation with Jake Paul and this whole thing, and I'm just like, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. And I'm not this guy that's like, oh, back in my day. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
But Mike Tyson is vicious.
Yes.
Jake Paul, not so vicious. Jake Paul, good promoter. He's a smart human being.
Yep.
Take my name out your mouth. You're talking about. I don't like Jake Paul.
Okay, good.
Zach saying he doesn't like Jake Paul.
Good.
Also told Belzy to take his name out of his mouth, which is
Take
pretty
my
risky.
name out your mouth.
That was ballsy.
But like, he's a good promoter. He's
Definitely.
smart with what he's doing, and I don't see a world where he doesn't rig it so that he can somehow be in it at the end of the day. That's just where my brain's at.
He's not knocking out Mike Tyson. He's winning by, if this goes 12 rounds and it's a decision. And then to me, it's fully rigged.
That's your prediction, or that's what?
That's why I just won't believe it if it goes 12 rounds and Jake Paul wins and they say Jake Paul's the winner. I'm going to be like, no, there's no way he was the winner.
Is there
I'm
a
sorry.
world where everybody gets what they want? We send all the fans home happy, like they say in wrestling, and Jake Paul knocks, like, just is laying there in a bloody mess? Or
But you
is
got to
that?
remember some of the details. The gloves are actually thicker than normal gloves.
Yeah.
So that's to now cushion more of the punch for Tyson.
Like when he lands a punch.
So when he lands it, it's not going to be as hard as it normally would.
I
It's
don't
because
care. That's still gonna
there's
hurt.
to be there's more to that glove.
More weight behind it too.
Oh, okay, sorry, man. Jake Paul won't be able to. If Mike Tyson could land 2 punches on Jake Paul, he's done.
Maybe 3.
Like, that's where it's. I just don't understand the money. Like, to me, I feel more it's rigged than not.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'll be able to watch it tonight on Friday. I've got some plans now. I'm not. I love the spectacles, but maybe it's a good thing I'm not, because I did watch. Was it Logan Paul
In Mayweather?
with Mayweather? Was it Logan Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. That was rigged. Mayweather was just going for the payday.
Yeah,
And
it
you
was a draw.
and you
It was
can't
an
take
You
the
can't
money
tell
back.
me
Yeah.
a Paul brother is the only fighter ever to not lose to Floyd Mayweather.
This is my point. This is why I'm worried about this. I'm worried about it.
Friday.
Like Mayweather could have
Netflix.
knocked out
Be there.
Paul so many times, and he didn't.
He knocked out McGregor, and he never knocks people out. He should have destroyed Logan Paul.
I know.
I think the fans were booing at the end of that fight.
They were.
Yep.
We will see what happens.
Yep.
We will see what happens. Ron, thank you very much for coming in. Again, Gridiron Wisdom, a playbook for leadership. Ron, McIntyrebooks.com, McIntyre, Ron McIntyrebooks.com. It was great having you on. And has work started on number 2? Or is it just in the brain?
Interviews have started,
Okay.
but had a interesting meeting yesterday. Somebody wants to put a documentary together on the book, and they're fairly well connected with TSN. And I don't know anything about making movies, but I'm not much of a writer either. But I sure enjoyed it, and I sure enjoyed my time with you, fellas.
I as well.
Fantastic.
I
Yeah,
feel
you
like,
bet.
are we buddies?
Oh,
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, did we?
Matt, Matt, are we buddies?
We're all buddies.
You know, I can end it this way if you want, Maddie, because I can confirm that Ron practices what he preaches, because I know for a fact that he coached cousins of mine, and I have an uncle that's a big fan of yours as well because of the way you taught his kids. And he sent me a note that said, Ron really loved every kid he coached. We were a basketball family, so our interaction was minimal, but he's one of those guys that you wished everybody was like.
That's very nice.
Uncle Dave.
Very nice. Thank you.
Again, thanks, Ron. Dash, thanks for popping in. Belle, it was great seeing you. Hello Hockey this
Likewise.
Saturday, 10 o'clock.
Yep.
I sometimes always worry because, you know, plans for Saturday right now, we're still working on them.
Still good.
Okay. Dave,
Like,
had
are you,
on.
talk, are you
No,
talking
like you
about
have
like
guests.
a guest?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we have a guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to ruin it. But yeah, we got a guest.
That's what
the
they call
opposite of promotion.
That's what they call a tease in the business. Coming up next here on Edmonton Sports Talk, we do got the Lock Shop, myself, Pat Gregoire, Oil Stream, Tommy, and Glue Guy. We got the EST Afternoons. We got the Reed Wilkins Show later tonight at 9 o'clock. We do have Oilers Live, Dash and Michael. Anyone else?
Lotsy's probably be on with us.
Perfect. And also at 6 o'clock, we got Crush Performance. On behalf of Ron, Dash, Bellsy, I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning in to the EST Hangout right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. Up next, it is the Lock Shop. Don't go anywhere. That's got it going in just a few minutes.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here. Joining us today,